Good evening. My name's Mike Cains. I'm delighted to speak to a group of people so passionate about the environment, so passionate about how we can be a solution to climate change. I'm all in on renewables, especially renewables in agriculture and sustainable food and fibre. And I'm a glass half full kind of guy. There are reasons to be optimistic. There are quick wins, but it needs contribution. I say that what we need now is the democratisation of energy. It's a way we can all make a difference by being more conscientious consumers, the reliance on burning fossil fuels. In my address, I'm going to give you some insights into our business and how we've become carbon neutral to the extent that we can measure it. At least we are energy positive, and I'll show you that information in a moment. I'll also give you a bird's eye view of the agricultural sector, how farmers and government and you as the consumer can play a part in ensuring that feeding the world and healing the planet are compatible things. When you come to our farm, when you come to Knights Hill on the eastern side of Robertson, Kiama, the landscape at first glance might seem unremarkable, but it's far from ordinary. On one side, you have Carrington Falls, an amazing national park with its towering mountain ashes and red cedars, ferns, a magnificent thunderous 300-metre waterfall. And on the eastern side, where we are, there are lookouts with 180-degree views of the Pacific Ocean sweeping from Berry to Botany, and all set amongst, cool climate rainforests. So it's here in the wettest part of New South Wales that we run our sheep dairy. You might imagine a typical farm might be vast squares, acres of treeless farm. That's not what our farm looks like. We graze on 180 acres, but only 100 of it is grazable. You see, our paddocks are intertwined amongst nature. They wind through riparian corridors, wetlands, rainforests. You'll see sheep grazing amongst wallabies. It's an ecosystem more than a farm. We've got a critically endangered plant on our farm called the Carrington Falls Pomaderus. I think there's only about 50 individuals left in the wild, and half of them are on our place. So it's quite the responsibility. It's a biodiversity wonderland, our place. And we feel very strongly that we're custodians of that. We want to keep that and nurture it. We want to make sure that the farm is in a better place. When I went around the world on my Nuffield scholarship, it was clear to me that the best practice dairy farms in the world believe that healthy soils equal healthy plants. A diversity of healthy plants equals healthy animals. Healthy animals produce healthy milk, and that's what makes the best cheese. It's a philosophy that all farmers should embrace. Society expects farmers to bear all the responsibility, all the risk, and the cost to produce climate-friendly food. Rarely are farmers paid a premium to plant wildlife corridors or sequester carbon. No one directly pays you to look after your animals with greater respect and empathy. The extent to which producers are carbon neutral is nebulous, especially with all the greenwashing supermarkets create brands designed to look like small eco-businesses, but are not. The big supermarkets are doing their best to choke out small producers. It's a shame because consumer-facing brands are the ones that innovate. And to us, and almost certainly anyone else with a consumer-facing brand these days, a social license to operate is a fundamental requirement to what our farm must be about. Nonetheless, as Michelle says, we do our best to keep pushing the envelope. We do our best to tell the story of our farm in our cheeses. For instance, Pecora Dairy Yarrawa is Australia's first non-pasteurised raw milk cheese. It reflects our whole farming system. The cheese is variable because the farm is variable. See, there is this concept of terroir, this sense of time and place. Like with wine, a good raw milk cheese can reflect the macro things happening on the farm. It can reflect the season, the climate, the pasture that the sheep are eating, the lactation point that they are in. And all of those things will reflect themselves in the ultimate cheese that's made. Just like a Barossa Shiraz or a Coonawarra Cab Sav is identifiable by its characteristics. Cheese also reflects the micro factors. Our cheese will be different when there's the microflora in the milk, say in the cool dryness of winter compared to the hot humidity of summer. So a raw milk cheese is the way to express our farming landscape in a piece of cheese. It's the ultimate way to give you a snapshot of what's happening on our farm. For us, Pecora Dairy is what we call a multifunction farm. This is important to set up why we've gone down the path that we have with renewables, why it's so important, why it's fundamentally a part of our brand. Pecora Dairy is a multifunction farm. That is to say, creating delicious cheese is just one function. It's not everything. We also have 4 prongs that sit equally alongside making delicious benchmark award-winning cheeses. And those 4 prongs are ethical animal stewardship, conservation of soils and habitat, carbon neutrality, and adding social and community good through contribution and leadership. Okay. Recently, we had ABC presenter Simon Marnie and DPI director Kate Lorimer Ward come to our farm to assess us for the prestigious Royal Agricultural Society President's Medal. The Royal Agricultural Society President's Medal is only open to the trophy winners of all the 6,000 exhibitors through, fruit and veg, meat, cider, oysters, cheese, dairy, the whole lot. They whittle those trophy winners down to the last 6, and then of the last 6, they try and establish a winner based on their ability to hit the triple bottom line. That'll get announced on Easter Wednesday, so please do wish us luck. It would be the greatest privilege of our careers to win the President's Medal because it recognises us just for what they farm, but how they farm. Some of the biggest questions in agriculture are not what is farmed, but how it's farmed. And we'll come back to that. That our principal purpose is to say something cheesy like, change the world one cheese at a time or something. But it's going to take more than that. It's going to take leadership, engagement, advocacy, and an economic imperative. Lofty idealism and altruism is only going to take us so far down global sustainability street. There must be an economic imperative that underpins behaviour, that underpins investment. There's no reason for people to put solar panels and batteries on their farms and on their houses just out of the goodness of their own heart. For us, initially anyway, our cheese manufacturing process relied heavily on LPG. And we would go through like a 49-litre gas bottle every single week. So that was costing us $500 or $600 a month. Knights Hill is notoriously wet. We've got unsealed roads. And from time to time, gas delivery drivers would refuse to come down our driveway. This was a problem. For us, relying on LPG as a business was risky and expensive. Being at the end of the line, we would experience blackouts that lasted for days. One time I remember there was this vicious storm and it was across the weekend. We made it to Monday. The power goes out. Monday is usually a cheese making day. So there we are. We can't milk, we can't make cheese. I logged on to the Endeavour Energy app, and on this occasion, it said that the power was going to be back on Wednesday. So this was Monday. It's thinking Wednesday. So I rang around and I found a generator. The generator I could find was in Albion Park. So down Macquarie Pass I went. I got a 25 kVA generator, mounted on a trailer, probably weighed about 2 tonne, drove it up the hill. Had to drive it quite hard, low gear. My mechanic tells me the technical expression is revving the tits out of it. That's how we managed to get the generator up Macquarie Pass. Just as I got home and I plugged the generator in, the power came back on. This is no way to run a business. We were exposed to unreliable, expensive, and fossil fuel-based energy. There's got to be a better way. Our friends at the Pines Kiama, at Moonacres, and also Rosnay Organics also had the same issues. Before we opened Pecora Cheese and Wine, one of the things that we used to do every Saturday was go to this market called Carriageworks. We would get up at 4 a.m. in the morning and rev down the highway and sell our cheeses. And it was sometime in the pre-COVID years, we met a loyal customer and a good friend called Aiden Moore. We didn't set out with lofty ambitions. We had good chats about solar panels, about batteries. At the start, we were just hoping to find a grant of some sort so that we could get some of our farms using more renewable energy, batteries, solar panels. From small acorns, big oak trees grow. Aiden was employed by RFS as a project manager that requires a particular skill set. He's thorough, meticulous, thinks laterally. Mine is more big picture, primarily, but we both know how to solve problems and get things done. We applied for a New South Wales government grant called the Efficient Community Pilot Program. And it was a competitive process, heavily skewed toward innovative solutions. The threshold was that the project size had to be $600,000. Well, Pecora Dairy is not going to put up a solar and battery project worth $600,000. But the 3 of our farms in aggregate could make it to $600,000. So we had 2 problems. How do we make it innovative, and how do we bind ourselves together in a community to overcome the $600,000 threshold? After talking with Redflow Batteries and Rethink, who specialise in this peer-to-peer infrastructure that we'll call virtual energy networks, a VEN. I won't bamboozle you with acronyms and terms, but if we can remember that one, VEN, peer-to-peer trading, but this was all still in its infancy. It's not like these were things that we could just grab off the shelf. But we had found a pathway to putting together a compelling submission. We would electrify our current equipment like hot water systems. We would install Redflow batteries. We'd install the latest tech solar panels. And we would adopt the first of its kind virtual energy network where we could trade energy amongst each other. We won the grant and began the work. Electrifying dairy hot water systems was something people said was too hard. We solved this issue with a 2-stage system. That is where initially we would preheat hot water using heat pumps, and then we would use larger, bigger hot water systems to top them up. We would use electrified hot water during the day when solar was free. In actual fact, one of the great lessons is that, and something that we can all take away, is that hot water is a battery. Your hot water system is a battery. When the sun is shining, it is working for free. Putting timers on hot water systems so that they work during the day and are switched off at night will save you a lot of money. That's the pro tip for the night. You can see Redflow batteries just on the left. That's my wife, Cressida, and my business partner. She couldn't be here tonight. She's presenting at a big agricultural conference in Western Australia. Redflow batteries are amazing at Aussie tech. They use zinc bromide pumped through these plates. Okay, so these things here looks like a plate heat exchanger. And this here is a tank. That's where the zinc and the bromide solution live. When energy needs to be stored, the zinc electroplates itself onto these membranes. When electricity needs to be released, there's a reverse electroplating process where this comes back into the solution. These are the marathon runners of the battery world. Lithium are the sprinters. These are all Aussie tech, renewable material, recyclable materials. They're not flammable, and they will last for decades because all of this is serviceable. We think it's superior technology to lithium, but they are more bulky. When we first proposed a VEN or peer-to-peer trading system, Rethink, our VEN partner, had yet to start deploying their technology. There were no cooperative energy retailers that we could tap into. We, mostly Aiden, had to bring this all together from concept to deliverable. How does the VEN work in practice? Well, there is a decision tree. When energy is created, we use what is generated on the site first. Then we fill batteries. The rate of how quickly batteries can be filled is limited. And only then we can start to trade any excess energy within our own sites. We have 3 sites: the dairy, the machinery shed, and the bar in Robertson. Once all of that is exhausted, we can trade energy amongst each other, the Pines, Rosnay, Moonacres, at much more attractive rates than the feed-in tariff. We can get triple the return from our excess energy by trading it amongst each other than by accepting the standard feed-in tariff. This is our annual usage in 2023. Over our sites, we produced 51.8 megawatt hours and we used 39.6. So as you can see, we're energy positive. Pecora Dairy spent $216,000, half of which was funded by the DPI, and the other half was financed by the Rural Assistance Authority Farm Innovation Loan, where we were able to lock in a 10-year loan at 2.5%. Our monthly repayments are $1,000. Our savings are a lot bigger than $1,000. This project has been cash flow positive for us from day one, and we didn't have to use a cent of our own money. We can now expand access to this system and expand the number of members of this community throughout the agricultural sector. The other benefit that came from this is that Aiden found his passion. He quit his job at the RFS, and now he's doing tremendous work at QuantumNRG, where the most powerful bit of marketing is word of mouth. I'm very excited to see how big our little group can get. I'm passionate about advocating for renewables in agriculture, and I see a day where there's not just half a dozen of us, but there are hundreds that are all joined together in agricultural renewable cooperative, which we're just trying to formalise now with a proper constitution and things. But I can see a time where we can use our power as a virtual power plant, where we can use our scale to negotiate the best possible energy contracts. A day where our batteries can be dumped of energy to capitalise on a high spot price and give our members an alternative income stream. It's sad really that we have to use technological workarounds to achieve this. So arcane and inflexible is the national energy market that if I generate energy and I need to trade it 50 metres away to a different site on my own farm, I have to pay exorbitant transmission costs just to do that. The ag sector has a huge part to play. We have land, roofs, water infrastructure, manure waste, energy crops, oil seeds. but we're currently 20% of Australia's carbon emissions. Sustainable food and fibre is an achievable reality. However, the national energy market creates distortions and disincentives for farmers to adopt renewables. The failure of the energy market to serve the agricultural sector is diabolical. A typical farmer in the central west of New South Wales would have multiple metering points across their farms. If a farmer wants to generate solar at a central point and then irrigate a field a few hundred metres away on a different metering point, they'll have to sell the energy into the grid at 7 or 8 cents and then pick it up at 32 cents, though the energy never left the farmer's property. Lack of equity aside, it's clearly an inequitable state of affairs. It creates a powerful disincentive to have renewable energy infrastructure on your farm, does it not? Because the return on investment isn't there in the same way that it would be if you were drawing all the power from a single meter and using it as it's being generated. So the missed opportunity here is that farmers have resources to make a huge impact in the growth of renewable energy. But our energy market stands in the way of renewables making sense for many farms. Microgrids are diabolically difficult to implement due to regulatory barriers, which is why we're using these technological workarounds. The cost of transmitting energy is a roadblock to viable projects. The monopolistic large gentailers, generators and retailers, Origin, AGL, are resistant to microgrids, and they deliberately hold back the take-up of renewables. Electrification on farms won't happen with the existing distribution network. The lines are unable to carry the power load required to some areas. The question is, what should governments do? I put together a submission with a bunch of other farmers to the department recently, and I'm just going to summarise that for you. But what our small group came up with was that the government needs to develop a comprehensive white paper for agriculture and energy, fostering collaboration between farmers and industry. We need to build partnerships between scientists, government, industry, farmers to bridge the gaps in the understanding and to create market linkages, delivering capacity and finance. We need to provide targeted one-on-one support for farmers to help them understand how renewable solutions can be applicable to them. We need to fund and support knowledge sharing through peer-to-peer opportunities. We are calling on the government to establish an agricultural arm of ARENA to fund smaller, innovative and high-risk projects on farm, incorporating a knowledge sharing component. We would like funded battery storage facilities on the weaker parts of the distribution network so that it can solve issues for the grid and on farms. We need farmers to be enabled to host transmission infrastructure and be compensated at the higher rate than they currently are. We are seeing how much this is creating pain at the moment. Farmers need to be compensated for transmission infrastructure at a similar rate to what they would have if it was a wind turbine. This would reduce the inequity between farmers hosting wind turbines and those hosting transmission. We need to transform our distribution grid so that it's fit for purpose. Currently, there are export limits that prevent farmers from exporting excess power to the grid. That needs to be abolished, and we need to replace that with dynamic export limits, which only prevents export when the grid can absolutely not take any more. We need to enable the sharing of energy across metering points, across NMIs, within a single owner's farm, even if that is contiguous farms. It is ridiculous that a farmer cannot sell energy to themselves, cannot use energy within their own farm without paying the transmission costs. The large vendors must be required to transact with microgrids and VENs at fair rates. We need to establish farmer renewable energy zones. Distributors should identify underutilised areas on the network in regional areas and encourage farmers to install small micro-scale solar. We need to develop local energy markets models encouraging the use of energy produced and used locally. We need to create a fair national feed-in tariff across the national energy market. These tariffs should reward farmers for contributing clean energy to the grid. They should recognise the environmental and social benefits of these renewables. APRA needs to intervene to make sure that banks finance renewable infrastructure using the asset as collateral, not making the farmer tie up their own capital. Frameworks for clear metrics so that we can be transparent about which farmers are doing the right thing and which ones are greenwashing. Look, we can't be waiting around for governments to pick winners on their own projects. Recently, it's been frustrating to hear Chris Bowen talk about expensive offshore wind turbines, when the quick wins, the low-hanging fruit, go unnoticed. There is plenty for governments, retailers, and distributors to think about. But you also have an important role as a consumer. We need to democratise energy. People should be welcome to join a virtual energy network, to be part of a renewables community. The question is not what is farmed. The smarter question is, who is my producer and how is it farmed? Our last words are know your producer and buy Australian. Thank you very much.